Today I am doing numeracy. In numeracy, I am doing number patterns. Number patterns are patterns or sequences in a series of numbers. In question 1, I found the difference between 3 and 6 is 3, and the same with 6 and 9, and 9 and 12. So I added 3 to 12, which gave me 15, and then I added 3 to 15, which gave me 18, and then I added 3 to 18, which gave me 21. The rule is skip counting by 3 or plus 3, adding 3. For question 1, in this section of the question, I found the difference between 20 and 18 is 2, and the same with 18 and 16, and 16 and 14. I realized I was skip counting backwards, so I subtracted 2 from 14, which gave me 12, and 2 from 12, and I subtracted 2 from 12, which gave me 10, and finally I subtracted 2 from 10, which gave me 8. The rule is skip counting backwards by 2 or subtracting 2 minus 2. The difference between 3 and 11 is 8, so I know the correct rule to use is plus 8, because 3 plus 8 equals 11. The difference between 10 and 30 is 20, so I know the correct rule to use is plus 20, because 10 plus 20 equals 30. And the difference between 157 and 257 is 100, so I know the correct rule to use is plus 100, because 157 plus 100 equals 257. The difference between 95 and 125 is 30, so I know the correct rule to use is plus 30, because 95 plus 30 equals 125. At first, I thought the correct rule to use was plus 25, but then when I worked it out, it was a different answer, so I used plus 30, and it gave me the correct answer, 125. The difference between 103 and 108 is 5, so 103 plus 5 equals 108. 108, the difference between 108 and 113 is 5, so 108 plus 5 equals 113. The difference between 113 and 118 is 5, so 113 plus 5 equals 118. And 118 plus 5 is 123, 123 plus 5 is 128, and 128 plus 5 is 133. The difference between 290 and 390 is 100, and this rule applies with all these numbers. And 590 plus 100 equals 690. 690 plus 100 equals 790. 790 plus 100 equals 890. The difference between 732 and 762 is 20, and so 732 plus 20 equals 762, and this rule applies with all these other numbers. And 822 plus 20 equals 852. 852 plus 20 equals 882. And 882 plus 20 equals 912. The difference between 371 and 373 is 2. So 371 plus 2 equals 373. And this rule applies with all these other numbers. And 377 plus 2 equals 379. And 379 plus 2 equals 381, and 381 plus 2 equals 383. The difference between 26 and 36 is 10, so 26 plus 10 equals 36, so plus 10 is the rule, and the rule applies with these other numbers in this row. And over here, I got this one wrong. I thought the rule was minus 10, but it was actually minus 20, because 290, because the difference between 290 and 270 is 20. So 290 minus 20 equals 270. So the rule is minus 20, and the rule applies with all the other numbers in this row. For here, I found the difference between these two numbers, 212 and 218, which is 6. So I added 6 to 218, which gave me 224. And to get to this answer, I had to subtract 6 from 212, which gave me 206. And over here, I found the difference between 800 and 760, which is 40. So I subtracted 40 from 760, which gave me 720. And then I subtracted 40 from 720, which gave me 680. And over here, I realized that this was like skip counting by twos, 2, 4, 6, 8, except it was in hundreds. So once I realized the pattern, I could easily fill in the blanks, spaces, 200, 400, 600, 800. And for this one, I realized that I was also skip counting by fives, 615, 620, 625, 630, 635. Here, the rule is plus 10, so I skip counted by tens until I got to 80. Here the rule is minus 4, so I skip counted back by fours until I got back to 4. And here the rule is plus 100, so I skip counted by 100 until I got to 800. I found the difference between 3 and 6, 6 and 9, 9 and 12, which is 3. And the next number in this pattern should be 15, but since there are no tickets that say 15, I added 3 to 15, which gave me 18, so I knew the answer was 18. I wrote how many apples were in each pile, and then I started to recognize the pattern. 1, 3, 5, 7, and the next number, and I knew the next number in the pattern was 9. At first, I didn't know what this blank space was for, but then I found out that this blank space was for showing how I worked the question out. And instead of wasting my time drawing 11 items with 2 pegs on each, I could just skip count by twos because the question said each item has 2 pegs. And I need to stop at 22 once I have skip counted by twos 11 times, as the question says 11 items. I am practicing comparing mass. In this lesson, there are scales to compare how much an item weighs. In question 1, I knew how much these items weigh because I counted the blocks. In question 2 and 3, in question 2, I found the book is the heaviest because it weighs 10 blocks and there is no other item that weighs more than 10 blocks. And in question 3, I found the pencil is the lightest item because there is no other object that is lighter than 2 blocks. In question 4, I used question 1 to help me find out how many blocks these items weigh in total. I found the ball weighs 4 blocks, so I wrote 4. And I found the glue stick weighs 5 blocks, so I wrote 5. And I added up 4 plus 5, which gave me 9. So the ball and the glue stick weigh 9 blocks in total. I found the book weighs 10 blocks, so I wrote 10. And I found the pencil weighs 2 blocks, so I wrote 2. And then I added 10 plus 2, which equals 12. So the pencil and book weigh 12 blocks. I found the scissor weighs 8 blocks and the gift weighs 3 blocks, so I wrote 8 plus 3, which equals 11, so the scissors and gift weigh 11 blocks in total. I found the book weighs 10 blocks and the ball weighs 4 blocks. So I wrote 10 plus 4, which equals 14. So the book and ball weigh 14 blocks in total. I found the glue stick weighs 5 blocks and the pencil weighs 2 blocks. So I wrote 5 plus 2, which equals 7. So the glue stick and pencil weigh 7 blocks in total. I found the book weighs 10 blocks and the scissors weigh 8 blocks. So I wrote 10 plus 8, which equals 18. So the book and scissors weigh 18 blocks in total. The scissors is the heaviest item because the scissors weigh 8 blocks and there is no other item that weighs more than 8 blocks. The pencil is the lightest because there is no other item that weighs less than 2 blocks. The scissors weigh 8 blocks and the eraser weighs 3 blocks. The difference between 8 blocks and 3 blocks is 5 blocks. The texture weighs 5 blocks and the pencil weighs 2 blocks. The texture is heavier and has a 3 block difference. The texture weighs 5 blocks and the pencil weighs 2 blocks. The texture is heavier than the pencil by 3 blocks. The pencil weighs 2 blocks and the scissors weigh 8 blocks. The pencil is lighter than the scissors by 6 blocks. The scissors weigh 8 blocks and the eraser weighs 3 blocks. So 8 blocks plus 3 blocks equals 11 blocks. If Doc puts 2 trains on this side of the scale, then the number of dolls will need to have been doubled. So 4 dolls are needed to balance the scales. In question 12, I know that one ball weighs the same as 3 blocks, but if Mango puts 3 balls on this side of the scale, 9 blocks are needed to balance the scales. I know this because I tripled the number of blocks in my head. In question 13, if Waldo puts a ball and a doll on this side of the scale, well, a doll weighs 5 blocks and a ball weighs 3 blocks, so 5 plus 3 equals 8. So 8 blocks are needed to balance the scales. For question 14, if Dizzy puts a train on the scale, 2 dolls are needed to balance the scales. And I know this because I can see from the picture. And 10 blocks are needed to balance the train on this scale. I know from this picture that one doll is 5 blocks, weighs 5 blocks, so 2 dolls must weigh 10 blocks because 10 plus 10 because 5 plus 5 equals 10, and 10 blocks would balance the scales. So that is my score for today. In maths, doing number patterns, after I completed the lesson, I did 2 lessons today. So after I completed the number pattern lesson, I felt proud of myself and glad for getting almost all of the questions right, getting most of the questions right, and in the comparing maths lesson, that was my favorite lesson because of all the colorful blocks and the look of the scales. They were very pretty, and the way they made the graph.